Thank you. It's my absolute honor to be with you this evening. Why, as Brahmins, is it so important for us to own our emotions or our feelings? Is that just something for Lokik people, or is it valuable to us as Brahmins? And I have to say that it really is very valuable for us as Brahmins. Why? Well, after all of these births, after 84 births, and having come to God, there is this path that we've taken, a choice we've made to live a life of with God as his companion, as his children, as his helpers. And we've chosen that. And part of that process is to become pure, to allow the divinity within us to be reawakened, for it to come back into our life, so that we are helping Baba in creating heaven on earth and purifying the world, matter, nature. We're living a life full of creativity. And for this whole journey, for us, it's only possible because we're transforming our chit, not just our sanskars, but our chit. Chit, the memory track, the part of me that has carried the history of, or the part of the soul that I've played for the last 84 births. And we know the first 21, well, that's one of divinity, one of bliss, one of absolute lightness. And the other, 63, have been where we've accumulated impressions that have sustained karmic accounts, that have become karmic bondages. And so through this journey, taking the time to being able to be responsible for our own emotions, owning those emotions. And when I own them, it's a two-part. I'm owning my divinity and bringing that to the forefront in my interaction with each other. But I'm also owning that which needs to be transformed, that which I've accumulated, I've acquired, and now needs to be let go of, transformed. So what does it mean to take responsibility for my emotions? Literally, we know that our emotional intelligence, our emotional resilience comes from working through emotions without letting them overwhelm us. Emotional accountability is part of a healthy emotional response. And for Baba's children, it's that divine response. And it's Baba's Shurima that gives us light on what our responses could be. Baba's directions, Baba's Murli shows us what we could respond as an individual. So taking responsibility for our emotions, it's going to be knowing what they are, recognizing our emotions. Now that sounds very simple, maybe even obvious. But it's harder than it sounds. For those of you who've tried it, it is a little harder. Think about it. It's not always easy to know what you're feeling. You could be experiencing an emotion or perhaps a mix of emotions that you've never felt before or you've never recognized. You might struggle to put words to your feelings, or on occasion, perhaps there's been the experience of overwhelm to a point where I've become numb and feel nothing. And that's hard to figure out and understand what's caused that. When we own our emotions, that's when, that creativity, that uniqueness within I, the soul, comes to light. And it's why Baba chose me. 8 billion souls. Do I recognize why out of 8 billion souls, Baba has recognized me? So yes, it does take a little practice. You might journal. Baba used to write. I know that I write most evenings. You might have a close Brahmin friend, or you might sit in Baba's room in the evening and verbally process your feelings. Or you might just sit in yoga and allow your mind to become clear so that you have a plain intellect. And that process allows me to recognize deeply what is it that's come into play. Sometimes we become familiar with how certain emotions affect us physically. If it's anxiety, it might be in the chest. Tension might be in my shoulders. Anger, and I might feel that knot in my stomach. And the same for lightness, love, peace. What is the expression of those in your body? Do you feel it? I think for most of us, it's that energy of life that comes into play. I have more energy. I have more hope. I have more optimism. But my body cooperates with me. No matter how ill I am, if I've had emotions of or feelings of peace, love, joy, purity, bliss, I find that not only does my body cooperate with me, but time cooperates with me. And there's enough energy and more that is available for me. It's by actually being aware of how feelings affect me that helps me identify them more quickly. And the nice thing is that if I identify something quickly, I can, if it needs changing, I can change it then. I don't have to process. I don't have to spend hours trying to understand. I recognize and I'm able as an individual then to change it, to redirect it, to realign myself and what I'm feeling. So understanding our emotions on a deeper level, having identified them, if you take the time to understand them a little more, to explore where they're coming from, what they're rooted in a little more, I'm able to take responsibility. That is, I'm able to change them. Ask yourself, and it's one question I know that's been useful to me. Am I prone to feel certain emotions more than others? Why is that? What are my natural reactions to certain emotions? What is my desired reaction to those emotions? Isn't that interesting to be able to do that? I've given myself time to play, to be light and to play and see what else I could respond with. How else could I respond? What depth I can respond from. And one of those in things that Baba talks about in this case is service through the mind. I think we've all explored it to some extent for sure. And over the last few years, we've been serving through our mind in yoga with Sakash. We've been doing that. But we've got there by understanding what our desired response to an emotion could be. There's that clarity, and that clarity allows power to flow. And the lovely thing about it is at the right time, I'll be able to leverage the emotion at the appropriate time. I won't allow it to make me feel a victim or suppress me, but as an individual, I'll be able to leverage that emotion, that energy. I know that when I'm feeling sad, for example, it can easily become an excuse not to be productive that day. It's not wrong that if I'm feeling sad that I might need to do something that will benefit me. I might need to have a day in which I can heal myself. But taking a day and just being on my own and being miserable or staying in bed, that's not healing. That's taking time to justify my sadness. I'm sad and I'm right to be sad. Well, yes, that's one part. Or another part, this emotion has emerged in me. How do I heal it? And a number of times, for those of you who've been in Gyan for 25, 30 years, 20 years even, you'll have heard Daddy Janki talk about her time when she'd gone to Baba in Madhuban, and she'd said to Baba, I don't understand. I have no reason to feel sadness. I have no excuse. I've not done anything wrong. I have a huge amount of love for Baba's family, for the service, for this gratefulness in my heart, for my Brahmin life, that I belong to God. So there's all of that in my awareness, and yet I'm feeling sadness, an overwhelming feeling of sadness. And Baba explained to Daddy that it's not just this birth, but it's for many births. We've heard in the Sakarmalis, Baba talk about uplifting 21 generations. As Brahmins, we are responsible for uplifting 21 generations. Isn't that incredible? Most people are worried about the karma that they've got right now and what's causing them this karma. Why are they feeling this? Why is this happening to them? And Baba's expanding our awareness to know that whatever we're doing, whatever choices we're making, we're able to make choices that uplift 21 generations. It's incredible. That's how broad Baba's making my intellect. And so when Baba spoke to Daddy, he said it's not just this birth, but it's 21 generations. It's the attachment that others have had for you. Your attachment is with Baba. You have become Baba and you've forgotten the old world. But the souls in the old world are still attached to you. And so 10 days, Daddy sat in one of these little rooms in training section, just a little room on the side of the training section. It wasn't completely built at all. It was just like an outhouse almost, which had been used for storage. And they cleared it out, and Daddy stayed there for 10 days, having intense yoga to transform that attachment in such a way that there'd be no claim on her at all. She was cleaning out her chit, her memory track. She didn't talk to anyone, she didn't see anyone. Their food and water would be left outside her room, and she'd take it in and she'd focus on transforming that deep memory in herself. I don't know how many of you have tried it. Perhaps not 10 full days of isolation and deep yoga. One of the pieces of advice Daddy gave me when she saw that my field of service was becoming more and more intense, she understood that I would need to have to balance it out. Otherwise, I would get stressed and burn out. And so one of the bits of advice that Daddy gave me was to, in the evenings, to sit in Baba's room until I completely emptied out any form of memory of that day. And I became so free that I just became that being of light. No memories of conversations, activities, things that you need to carry on to the next day, obligations, pending activities, projects that you're involved in, but to wipe your intellect so clear, make it plain, for the not just for the intellect, but the memory track, for there be nothing left but you and Baba. Don't worry, service will still be there tomorrow. All your obligations will be waiting for you to pick them up. All your projects, all the things you need to do, they'll still be there tomorrow. But the difference is you'll come to them with a fresh energy, a lightness. It's a very beautiful experience. And so that happens, and it only happens for Brahmins, I think, when I sit and I empty out, I clean out at the end of each day. And in that process, whatever's coming up, you don't have to sit and explore it or understand it or explain why there is that emotion. It's learning to let go. I recognize it, I let it go. I don't own it as in hold on to it any longer. So another definition of owning something is that you hold on to it. You insist that it defines you. And so you become free from that sanskar. Gosh, I really hope I'm speaking slowly enough for you. Please let me know otherwise.
Yes, you're speaking very well. Don't worry.
Thank you. Um, so what is the basic tenet? Look back at lesson 1, the basics of your Brahmin life. And we are taught that in understanding and leveraging our emotions, I need to actually acknowledge and practice this. I am in control of my thoughts and actions. What does that mean? Well, basically, it means that just because you feel a certain way, it doesn't mean you have to act in a certain way. No? What's one of the avyat tools that Baba has given us, Avyat Bapdada has given us? If you feel you need more patience in your life, then give that patience to a task. Be more patient in a communication or a relationship. Baba has never asked us to suppress ourselves or our emotions. Ever heard a Muli where Baba said, suppress? No. So feeling sad doesn't mean I stay in bed all day. What matters is how you choose to respond to whatever feeling emerges. So being deliberate, claiming control over that choice is what owning your emotions looks like. Being responsible for those emotions. You aren't feeling a victim. You don't feel that something is inevitable. You have no choice but to be this way. Rather, you acknowledge your emotional situation and using that data, that information, making a decision and taking an action that's going to enable us to move forward. That's the whole process, and that's why we do it. So I'm not a victim. And the other thing that comes up, I think, where we blame, we're no longer blaming others. I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt who said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. I love that. I absolutely love that quote. So, part of emotional accountability, not to mention healthy relationships, is realizing that no one can make me feel a certain way. It might be easier to feel happy, sad, angry, bitter, etc. around certain people, but they can't force us to feel that way. We all know that I can be around a miserable person and yet choose to be happy. And I think all of us have experienced that we're around happy people and we've chosen to be miserable. Choice. And so my emotions are my own. I am responsible. I am in control of how I respond to situations, other people's words, actions. But that doesn't mean I forget that my emotions impact others. It's a fact. So although I can't make someone feel something in a certain way, that's a fact any more than someone can make me feel in a certain way. But I cannot ignore the potential impact my feelings, my emotions have on someone else. One of the things that happened when I used to travel with Daddy as an interpreter, one of the things that astounded me about Daddy was how she impacted everyone. It could be a little baby in her arms. It could be young teenagers. It could be college graduates, university graduates. It could be families, professionals, prime ministers, presidents. Everybody felt at ease with Daddy. They were so at ease and be happy to tell her where they were at, what their problem was, and take not just support, but that wisdom from her. That's what our emotions do. They open up others. Those feelings that we choose to play with, our divinity that we choose to own, that we say are mine, when I express those, gosh, what a difference it makes for other people. It is when we take responsibility for those feelings, we choose the feelings we want to work with, our words, our actions, our presence, our company becomes inspirational. Take a moment. I'm sure if you took a moment, you'd recognize that that had been true for you too. So, a simple question to ask yourself. Do I make it easier for others to feel happy? Golden Age, we're establishing heaven on earth. The Golden Age, everyone's happy. We're supporting each other's happiness. We're allowing it to flow. So do I make it easy for others to feel happy? Or am I allowing emotions to drag us both down? Not something we'd want. The other aspect, yes, we're Baba's helpers. So what happens is that emotional accountability supports the efforts we make. You can make effort the right way, or you can make effort the wrong way. Wrong way, and I'm making it so hard for myself. I'm owning all my weaknesses. I'm claiming them as my own. And by doing that, now you try moving forward with your feet bound. Not easy. You've restricted yourself from moving gracefully forward. And today's Murli Baba highlighted that, did he not? To recognize our specialities, not focus on our weaknesses, but recognize your speciality and move forward. When I recognize what I'm feeling, and it's a pure feeling, a positive feeling, that feeling is going to enable me to move forward with ease, with lightness, with a carefree experience of life. But that's because I've taken responsibility and chosen what I choose to feel and express. By taking responsibility, I'm not allowing any old emotions to take control over me, which means that I don't give in to the monkey brain. You know, the monkey brain, and psychology, they call it an experience of being unsettled, restless, confused. Instead, what I'm doing is learning to observe my emotions in a way that I channel them into being productive thoughts and actions. This is a key skill for creativity because in every situation, as a helper of God, I'm using that skill. It allows me to foster healthy relationships, strong relationships. It supports my thinking, particularly when I'm having to do something collaboratively. It allows that creativity, that lightness, that openness to come into play. When you own and you take responsibility for those emotions, you know how to respond to something that would normally upset you. Piece of criticism, feeling of loneliness, or feeling left out. All of that is rebalanced straight away. And I'm creating routines, mindsets that serve me. And finally, by owning my emotions, what I'm doing is I'm building discipline naturally. What is the word discipline? It means to act. The origin of it, if you look it up, is that it literally means to act from a place of love. Because there's humility, patience, and then discipline. All of those allow me the freedom to be who I am. Ultimately, it allows me to be a wholehearted, authentic person. Brahmin. So become familiar with your emotions and what they mean. Take ownership over them. Stay in control and use your emotions to your advantage. If you can do this, you'll find that the process of creating heaven on earth will be easy and fulfilling. So, there's my understanding of it, but there are a few things you can do. Journaling, mentioned it earlier, writing my thoughts and feelings. And if there's a block, we've all had these experiences from time to time in our Brahmin life. There's a block, there's no clarity. I don't know what to do. Just let your hand write. And not only will what's going on that's causing the block become clear, but there'll be understanding. And then you'll be able to take Baba's help. Connect with each other. Have a conversation. Have a conversation, keep company of Brahmins. I know one of the things I really enjoy at Inner Space, because we all do shifts. We have a morning shift and an afternoon shift, and there's a handover. What happened this morning? So that people are aware of what's been happening. And the way we start the conversation is, what miracle happened for you this morning or this afternoon? It's an incredible way of connecting with each other. Engage in service. Lend a hand, help, or cooperate. Allow those sanskars of kindness, of compassion to emerge, so there's benefit for the self and for others. And the interesting thing is, then that sense of purpose that you have with God, with Baba, becomes more aligned to your actions, your attitude, your feelings. So what's happening is that there's the mind, the conscience, the intellect, my memory track, my heart. These are the subtle aspects of the soul. You know what your mind is. Your conscience is the part of you that's heard, that reiterates God's versions and says, this is right, this is truth. The intellect, your wisdom, and the intellect needs space to respond. There has to be a stillness in your intellect for that truth, that wisdom to respond. Your chit or your memory track, well, 63 births needs a clean out, right? And otherwise, there is a force of that karmic bondage that prevents your intellect from working, your conscience from speaking, your mind from being creative, and a force of being able to impress in a positive way, to influence in a positive way. So the clean out of the memory track. And then my heart feels whole, it feels full, and I start to work from the heart of the soul. How do you know you are? There'll be a sense of easiness in your nature, a lightness, and reactivity, being sensitive. All of those sanskars will just kind of fall by the wayside. Now, for all of that to happen, we all know that we have to ensure our feelings, the ones that we want in our memory track now, have to be embedded in my relationship with Baba. So here's an exercise. We've got 10 minutes. So I want to share with you a few tools that I've tried over the years. So I'd like you all to stand up. Everybody standing? Yeah? I would, but today I can't. So I'm going to ask you all to stand up. Nobody's sitting. Now turn to your left. They say that if you look to your left, it's like looking to the past. So you're looking at your past. And I'd like you to pick up a situation or a strong emotion that was triggered. Might be today, might be last week, it might be a month ago, maybe something from my childhood that pops up every so often in my memories. What would you advise your younger self? Now, I don't need you to give yourself a lecture, just with a loving vision, like a loving embrace. What advice would you give yourself? Okay. I know for me, when I first tried that exercise, it was just a very simple phrase. You are loved. You are cherished. It's that simple. Now, I want you now to turn to your right. Turn so you're facing the right side, which is your future. And I'd like to share with yourself, what is the hope you've held in your heart for yourself? Express it in words. This is exercise. This exercise allows you to verbalize good wishes for yourself. Very quick, very easy, and very light. Now, take your seats, be comfortable. Here's a few other things. Ask yourself, who am I really? Mike George question, who am I really? How do you define yourself? At any point in the day, how do you define yourself in that moment? Yes, I'm a soul. How often do you remind yourself you are handpicked by God? That's who I am really. I'm a soul who is handpicked by God. I'm a soul who is an instrument of benevolence in this moment. Ask yourself this throughout the day, maybe 5 times a day for a week. Just remind yourself, who am I really? Allow those memories to come to the forefront of your memory track. Here's another question. I've been handpicked by God. Why do I matter? Have you ever asked, why do I matter? Not for ego, but so you can be God's instrument in a clearer, more concise way. Here's another question. What 2 moments will I never forget in my life? Now, these are great when you journal. This is a great journaling one. Sorry. Describe it in great detail and why it is so unforgettable for you. Another really good one, if you're not sure about owning all your emotions, then ask yourself this. If my body could talk, it would say ... And so take a moment and recognize the emotions you've embedded in your body. Because that's what happens with emotions, right? We've all felt it. And finally, ask yourself, what words do I need to hear now? Or what words do I need to hear? So some of these are conversational. Yeah, you have conversations with yourself. Some of these are for journaling. Some of these are actually physical exercises. The exercise of standing and looking to your left, giving yourself some advice, turning round and looking to your right, and again, verbalizing a good wish for yourself. Do it. Don't just write it. Don't just think it, but actually physically do it so that it allows the energy of your emotions to flow. Otherwise, let's face it, we all have this sanskar of, or to some level, of suppression, of dismissing ourselves. And yet that's not what our Brahmin life is about. Those are just old triggers that I've developed to cope when I felt overwhelmed or unsure or muddled or confused. And I'm going to say Om Shanti there. I don't know how useful that's been, but are there any questions or any comments, or is there something I need to clarify?
It was wonderful. Whatever you shared are very helping all of us, I think. And I don't see any questions, but I just have a question because sometimes I can see souls who may be many, many years in Gyan, and other souls who are not so many years, but uh, they feel a lot of sorrow. They are sad about certain situations. And still, even though they read the Murli every day, they know about Srimad, they read Daddy's classes and whatever. They don't want to do the work with themselves. And they insist on staying on this sadness they have, or their probably jealousy or whatever. They don't want to change. How can we help those souls follow what you said? Actually, what you said is what Baba says, but why don't they do what they need to do? And they insist on staying on this condition. How can we help those souls?
Well,
By inviting you to talk to them?
no, not me, that's for sure, because it's Baba. So there is that. So I think there's two things that I keep in mind when I come across such a situation. Actually, there's a few things. Firstly, we all learn our lessons at a different point. No? What I learned early on, maybe something somebody else learns later. It is the same path, but we learn according to the lessons that Baba, the drama, want us to learn too. And so then at that point, I'm not judging anybody. Why haven't they done? Why don't they? Because they'll learn that lesson in their time. They probably learned something that I still need to learn. And the one thing about Daddy Janki was the thing I loved about her is at the end of each season, when she would come back to London, you would see a shift in her. No, I think you would have recognized it, yes? You would see a change in her, and she'd learnt something new. Now you'd think an 80-year-old, a 90-year-old, somebody's 100, surely they don't have much more to learn. And yet she proved me wrong. She just kept progressing. And so that brought such joy and hope for me as an individual that I will get there. I will learn. Then that's one thing. The second thing is good wishes. There's just as today Baba was saying, see your own specialities, not your weaknesses, and then make effort and progress naturally and easily. Well, my good wishes is my cooperation for somebody else. I'm seeing their speciality. I'm seeing the soul and its speciality. And just because they may have forgotten their speciality in this moment, well, I can still see it. And so, good wishes. Never letting go of good wishes. I know the good wishes that the daddies had held for me is what made my life possible. No, otherwise I'm super lazy. I could easily be lazy and not make any effort and just glide along. But their good wishes is what inspired me. So that's that.
Yes, thank you so much.
And I'm just going to say one more thing.
Sure.
Company. Don't ever walk away from another soul. Give them your company. And if you are light and easy and happy, it will rub off on them. So those are the three things.